Here he comes.
The lock! Let go of the handle! I don't have the handle! Open the lock!
Shake up! Come on, move! Open it up! Come
What the hell are we doing here?
Trusted your old mother, boy. Throw in the four-wheel drive and hold on to your hat.
Right, well, in this film I'm going to show you how to completely disable the alarm and immobiliser in a Jeep XJ Series Cherokee. This is the 1995 car. Now there's a few other videos and bits and pieces on forums and stuff telling you how to kind of partially bypass the factory fitted alarms on these. And some of that stuff might actually be useful. Apparently, if you earth out the immobiliser unit, which is supposed to be under the dashboard, that can actually set it in the permanently unlocked position. And on some of the alarms, there's the option of if you start the car, you can actually pull a plug out of the immobiliser unit, which again, if you do it while it's running, sets it completely in the open position. Now, I can't do that because I've actually already broken this system, so I'm going to actually rip the damn thing out completely, which is what I wanted to do all along. But I'll explain why that's a good thing anyway, because, I mean, if you've already got one of these, you'll know that the alarms are a pain in the neck. They spend the whole time howling, the siren going off, making a god-awful noise. It's actually one of the few things about these cars that is such a pain in the neck. But the other thing that's a real problem is if you're running an older car like this one, which isn't worth an awful lot of money, this only came with one key fob, and you can see there that's not a wonderful specimen. So that's the only one I've got. You can see here that the button is completely broken. So when that finally dies, and you can see that that doesn't have a long life left in it, essentially the car is dead, because not only does the alarm go off, but the engine will not start. So what I want to do is completely bypass it. I mentioned that I've broken it. I've done an Elvis Presley. By that, what I mean is, one of the annoying things about this system is that every time you connect and disconnect the battery, the alarm goes off for about 40 seconds. It howls, it makes a kind of air raid siren sound. It's absolutely horrible. And I was actually doing a different job on this car last night, and I've got young kids, so I tend to work through the night. That's the only useful time I get in between kids and work. Everyone goes to bed, I do my jobs on my car. And I've been as quiet as I could. I hadn't dropped any spanners, and there it was about 2:30 in the morning, and I hadn't even realised I'd disconnected the battery, but I'd interrupted the power supply because I was working near the fuel box. And just tightening a nut, this thing is howling, and all the lights are absolute horror. Because the battery was low, the thing kept going off again and again and again. So I picked up my clippers and I literally cut the cable to the siren. I don't know why I did that, but it's because it's been on my mind to take the damn thing out for a very long time. Now the siren, you can see, is here. It's this beast here, and it makes a god-awful noise. Now after I rashly cut the cable and then found that I couldn't actually get the damn thing to start, I thought it might just disconnect the sound. I've actually reconnected the wires here, but it's not working, and I suspect that's because the alarm unit itself, once it's actually had the circuits inside it broken, needs a kind of proper resetting procedure, and obviously they're designed that way to stop people stealing the cars. Now the reason I just cut it and didn't do some of the things I talked about earlier, which you can look up on the internet, is that I don't actually know where the alarm unit, the brain of the alarm, actually is. On these cars, sometimes it's under here, under the wheel arch. And sometimes the alarm unit is under here, behind this panel, or up under the dashboard. Now I've actually had a good look and I can't actually find the bloody thing anywhere. So it's hiding somewhere in the car, the evil brain that stops the car from starting. So I don't want to just kind of set it to the neutralised position. I want to rip the damn thing out or bypass it completely. So what I'm actually intending to do, and it's a bit different from some of the tutorials on the web where people are showing you something they know how to do, is I'm going to attempt to see if I can just bypass it completely, energise the ignition circuit, energise the starter, and do away with this evil thing after all. So you're actually going to kind of come on a bit of a journey with me. I don't actually know whether it's going to work, but I'm reasonably confident, and I suppose that's probably why I cut the bloody wire. I'm reasonably confident that this car can be made to go again. It's not going to be completely dead. So by hook or by crook, we're going to find out how to completely energise the ignition system and all of the circuits and the lights and the brakes and the interior lights without needing that horrible alarm and that horrible key fob. I will just say something in general about kind of anti-theft devices, kind of why I hate them so much, especially on the kind of cars I like, older cars. I mean, they're great when you buy a brand new car for £30,000 and everyone wants to steal it, of course, and you've got your 3 key fobs that come from the dealer and everything works on the car, so there's nothing wrong with having a key fob. That's fantastic. But when it gets old, when it actually becomes worth less than a new key fob would be, then these systems are nothing but a pain in the neck, especially as the car gets older. You quite often have to disconnect the battery to get in and do things, and disconnecting the battery, as I said before, can actually set the alarm off. It's just, such a nightmare. So if you stick with me, hopefully we'll get this car running and you'll know how, on a 1990s car at least, you can actually bypass the alarm. Now, I will say, if the car is valuable, expensive, or you like it and you particularly don't want to chuck it away, I would say be careful, because if you start messing around with this kind of stuff, it is possible to damage the ECU, it is possible to damage the immobiliser more than it's damaged up to that point, and then if you need to get someone to fix it, it could be more expensive. And also on a much more modern car, like say 2002, 2003, the immobiliser will be much more tricky to kill than the immobiliser on something like this, because the ECUs themselves, the engine management is much more comprehensive. It controls far more sort of systems on the car, and the immobiliser kind of goes, its evil tentacles go into many more of those systems. So really, unless you really know what you're doing, on a kind of post 2000 car, proceed with great caution. An even older car, I can't be held responsible if you set fire to your car, or you break it, or you give yourself a big garage bill. But hopefully, if you watch this, it might give you some hints and tips to get your old car going again. Right, well, the first thing I've got to do is actually work out what the immobiliser does. So I know that it cuts out the power to the starter motor, so when the alarm's not set, it won't actually turn over. But I've got to find out if it does anything else, because I suspect, I mean, a car of this age, it's likely that it could cut the power off to the fuel pump, and it may well also cut off the power to part of the ECU or the ignition coil. So essentially, it's going to prevent power getting to certain systems on the car. And once you've worked out what those systems are, and you know where your battery is, I mean, ultimately, you can always bypass it. You can actually fit a fuse box, fit various switches. Now, you might lose various systems within the car, some of the things with the interior lights. You might also, this is an automatic, you might lose the automatic safety switch. That's the thing that stops you cranking over the the car when it's actually in gear. That means if you're stupid and you're parked on top of a cliff in drive and you hit the start button, it might just fire up and you might go over the edge. But I think if you're doing this kind of job, I think you can probably be trusted not to start the thing in gear, but it's something to bear in mind. So this is an essential tool, my multimeter. And with this I can probe around various parts of the car and see where the power is, so I can actually try it with the ignition off and see where I've got a live 12 volt feed, and then I can try it with the ignition in the on position and even in the start position to see where I'm getting power to. And I'm going to start having a look at the starter motor. Right, well, I'm underneath the car now, and if you have a look up here you can actually see, or you should be able to see, here's the starter motor and this is the solenoid. So you can see the starter motor here. I've got the multimeter and I'm just going to test for a current on the what should be the main live feed. So there we are. What have I got? I've got sort of 12.5 volts showing on that, so that's great. So I've got my voltage to the main terminal here, so I'm actually going to use a jump lead to jump that straight off the battery. I should actually, well, with any luck, I should actually turn over the motor, and then well, it would simply be a case of fitting a starter button or something. So you've seen the other end of this jump lead is actually on the solenoid terminal. It's in park, so it shouldn't go anywhere. So with any luck, if I actually short this, make sure nothing's fouling the leads, that should actually... So that's splendid, so I know I can actually turn the engine over. So all I need to do is either piggyback off the ignition switch or even put in a separate starter button, and I've got the engine turning over. So I'm kind of a good way there to making this thing run. Right, so I'll just try it with the ignition on. We had something. I mean, it may well be that the fuel pump's not working as well, because it did burst into life but then it stopped, so that would be consistent. So I'll just have a look at the fuel pump. Right, so I'm actually under the back axle here. So here's the back axle and here's the back wheel. So this is actually the fuel tank, and up here I think you should be able to see where I'm pointing. This is actually the fuel pump unit, where that goes into the tank. As usual with these projects, it's now the middle of the night, which is of course why I had the problem with that howling alarm in the first place. It's doing this kind of work at this kind of time. But it was useful to get underneath the car and see how the wires all went into the fuel pump, but I can't actually hotwire it direct to the pump. I'll show you why. There's a device called the automatic shutdown device, which is a kind of fuel safety thing, and I'll just show you that now. So you can probably see this is the fuse box, the power distribution sensor, just behind the battery in the engine bay, and in here you can actually see here's the relay for the fuel pump, and ASD, that's auto shut off device. So that's the fuel pump there, and then the next relay along, ASD, that's the auto shutdown device. So that's these relays here. This is actually the fuel pump relay. I've popped that out, that goes there. And the two work in tandem. The ASD, it measures the engine RPM via the ECU, so it actually shuts down the fuel pump in the event of engine revs stopping. So you kind of override that too if you run it direct to the fuel pump. So what instead I've done is actually looked at the wiring, and you can see it here, of the fuel pump relay. So what you've got is on terminal 30 you've got a constant live from a 30 amp fuse coming in, and then terminal 87 takes the power back out to the fuel pump at the back of the car, but the relay itself is switched through terminal 86. That's the switched 12 volt coming in, and I've actually tested that is actually still there. So that's on the ignition switch, that comes live and goes off with the switch. but then that is actually earthed through the engine management ECU, but it's actually that earth which is then overridden by the immobiliser. So the immobiliser cuts that out. So what I've actually done is hacked into the bottom of the fuse box here. You can see how to do that. There are these two large metal tabs which you pop, and then the whole fuse box can lift up. Now at the front here you can actually see the main terminal. That's actually the power from the battery going in to the fuse box, and then you've got these tabs along here, and if you crack those tabs open both sides and then actually look on the back and make sure you check it's as I say, terminal 85 you're looking for on here, which when that goes in, that's the third one in, and then I've actually hacked into that and essentially taken that straight back to earth. So with any luck, that means that the fuel pump should now be working on the switch, but it's also, I haven't taken out the automatic shutdown device. So I think I'm nearly there. Right, so that's the fuse box back in place, and then coming out of the end here, this is my new earth wire that I've actually spliced into the bottom of the fuel pump relay. So I'll just actually pop that relay back in place. There we are, and you can see that actually matches the diagram that way out there. So we've got the fuel pump relay there, and the next one, that's the auto shut off device relay there. So all I need to do is splice a connector to the end of this earth wire and then earth that off against the bodywork, the chassis of the car, and that should actually give me fuel pump. Now we've already shown I can actually jump the starter motor off the solenoid pin, so that's really just a case of getting alive to that, so I can actually take alive to a starter button through another relay, and that will give me starting and fuel. So with any luck then it should start. So that earth is connected pretty much directly to the battery. You couldn't have a better earth than that. So now I will just check terminal for continuity to earth, and I can't see any reason why that won't be a good one. So there we are on the earth lead. Look at that, that's beautiful, perfect. So that's all back together. So actually if I pop the battery terminal on for a minute and just try the ignition, I should actually hear the fuel pump now. Well, that's fabulous. I can hear the pump working, so that's building up the pressure. That's brilliant. Right, well, I've got fuel now, and I found out yesterday I can turn the engine over, so now's the moment of truth to see if it actually starts. How about that? Fabulous. I am the god of mystery. Let's see if it actually goes back and forth. pouring out anywhere, which is good. All good. Well, all seems safe and sound, everything's clean, dry, there's no fluids coming out, all the instruments are doing what they should, everything seems to be working. I have bypassed that alarm. Wait a minute, here we are. Here's my key fob, and I don't need this anymore. Done, gone. This is now a better car, I'm very happy. I'll just check the fan. We've got the engine cooling fan on. Let's turn it off. Still no fuel, no water coming out. Fans off, all good. So you've seen I've actually got the thing running and driving, but it's not switchable yet. I've got to jump the thing, so I've got to actually make it switchable. The ideal thing is to get it switchable off the key. So the first thing I'm going to do is go back into that fuse box where I was and actually see what's going on with the starter relay and see if there's any way I can actually bridge the starter relay so I can just use the original wiring as it exists. Now if that doesn't work, I can go into the steering column when the ignition switches and see if I can actually pull some power or some feed off the ignition switch itself and then just rewire that direct to that starter relay that we saw underneath. But if the worst comes to the worst and I can't actually get any power going on there because the way the Immobiliser is set up, or it just gets too complicated, I've got here a generic starter button switch and a generic relay and some wire from Halfords. So I can actually stick the starter motor somewhere on the dashboard and have it ignition on the key and then hit the button to start it. But one way or another, I'm going to have this car driving. It's now raining really badly, but I'm going to press on because I need to get this actually fixed before tomorrow morning. So yeah, as I say, I've got no choice but to press on. Hopefully we're nearly there, so this last bit shouldn't be that difficult. Right, so the first thing I'm going to do is have a look inside the fuse box, do my best to keep it dry. I've got some umbrellas, and so where we are, that one is the starter relay. Out. So what have I got here? Right, that's interesting. That relay is numbered 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5, so I can't immediately see which one should be earth, which one should be live at any given point. So what I'm going to actually have to do go and see if I can find a reference. My wiring diagrams in the workshop manual unfortunately don't actually have half of these they've only got about a third of the wiring diagrams in the Haynes manual. So I'm going to have to check on the internet and see which one should be live, which one should be earth in whatever state of the key, and then obviously see if I can resolve that. Well, I think I've worked out what the terminals on that relay do. In fact, I'll just show you here. So you've got 5 terminals, you probably can't really see, but it's a slightly different layout to the other sort, and this one here is numbered 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5, but basically number 1 corresponds to terminal 85, so that is actually the earth, which should go via the ECU. Number 2 actually corresponds to terminal 86 on a conventional relay, so that would actually be the switched 12 volt input from the ignition switch. Number 3, that is actually the high voltage, the bottom one here, that's the high voltage, or sorry, the high power live constant input. And then number 4 is terminal 87A, which I shan't be using, and then terminal 5 corresponds to terminal 87. That's the second one here, that's the power out. So I'll just test that. So first off, I shall check the earth, which should be terminal number 1. So there we are. Alright, well that is giving me an earth. So that's interesting. So that's obviously not going to the ECU or the immobiliser. Let's check the voltage now. So that's good. So I've got a live 12 volts coming in there, and then let's see the switch. Nothing on the switch. Then obviously that isn't going to work. So somehow I need to get switched power to that one. Just see what happens if I bridge. Everything's clear. Which can actually double check if the actual starter circuit's going to work. That's great. So basically, I know I've got a starter current there. All I need to do is get a 12 volt switched live to that terminal there, and it should start. Jesus. Yuck. Right, well, I've taken the plastic cowling off around the steering column here, and I've actually exposed the back of the ignition switch connector. So the first thing I'm going to do with the multimeter is just have a poke around the terminals and see actually what is live and what happens when I do switch the terminals on. I've actually got a live, sorry, not a live, an earth. I've actually just run a jumper lead from the earth terminal to give me a good earth in here, so I can connect the earth up. So it means I can just very easily see if I've got any live 12 volt. Yuck. It really is horrible. It really is horrible outside. So yeah, as I was saying, I said it's a voltage, and oh my goodness. And I'm not sure if you can see, but here is the plug, so let's just have a look what we got. Alright, so we've actually got a live there, that's good, 12 volt live there before switch. Nothing. Nothing. And another 12 volt there. Nothing. Nothing. And nothing. So let's see what happens. Oh. Now this, we're going to get that bloody buzzer again, because I haven't actually ripped that out. That'll be, I think that's going to be my next film, is ripping that bloody buzzer out from under the dashboard. But for now, oh, in fact this illustrates perfectly why that has to go. Right, so that's ignition on. Let's see what have we got now. Right, so we've got 12 volt at the purple one there, 12 volts there, 0.4 volts there. That's a weird one. 0.04, nothing before, and nothing at that last yellow one. So I wonder if that yellow one, and let's see what happens when we take it out. Right, we can hear what we're doing now. Oh, that buzzer drives me bonkers. Right, actually that's pretty good, because I've actually got, that means the immobiliser is after this switch, and that is so much easier, because if the immobiliser was before the switch I'd have to get some kind of power from somewhere else into here. But I've actually got this yellow wire here is giving me 12 volts out on the switch. So basically if I splice into that wire and take that to the back of that starter solenoid, then it should start. So it should actually start on the key, and I shouldn't need to put a starter button in, so it will be much more a pleasant driving experience, and as it should be. So I'm very happy with that. I'll just show you that a bit closer up. Right, so just to recap, this is the plug unit at the bottom of the ignition and starter switch, and these two red ones here, this big red one here and this red one here, are actually live the whole time. This purple one and this orange one are live when it's in the kind of run position and the accessory position, so they run all your auxiliary systems, your wipers, that sort of thing. This little grey one, I'm not sure what that does, but I get kind of like half a volt when it's in the run position, so I mean maybe even that's actually powering the bloody immobiliser itself. But anyway, I'm not going to touch it. But the really important thing is this yellow one at the end here, this wire here, that's actually the starter wire, so that's got no power except when the key is actually turned right round to the start position, and then when it's in the start position these two here go dead, so that's when all your other things go down while it's actually starting, so that's great as well. That's really important because it means I'll get better starting. If I had a starter button I wouldn't have that facility of everything else being killed. That would all still be in the on position while I'm trying to start it. So this yellow one gives me live, so if I break into that wire and actually take the power from here to the back of the relay in the fuse box, and that's the terminal which I showed you earlier, the terminal which is the switched 12 volt input into that, then, you know, as far as I can tell, it should actually start on the key once I've done that, and then I will have completely bypassed the immobiliser. Jesus. I cannot tell you how disgusting it is tonight. I'm absolutely soaked to the skin, but I really have to get the job done. Anyway, I've actually disconnected the battery for the next bit because I'm going to be cutting into the the circuit, so I'm going to snip this wire off here. I am actually going to leave myself a kind of an inch or so tail coming out of the switch there, just because who knows what I might need to do in the future. If there's any issues, it's possible I might have to revert back to standard and kind of do something else, so I don't want to lose that wire altogether or make it absolutely impossible to splice onto it in the future. So just need to take the end off there. So I'm going to use this. This is a nice, so it's a 27 amp cable. It will take, in fact, it's similar load to what's there already. Now I'm going to take the whole lot off. I don't want to cut it to length because I don't know how long I'll need, because I want to do a nice neat route once I get through the bulkhead, and also it's going to take me a little while to actually get it through the bulkhead. I'm going to have to go round and find a hole, and that's one thing on more modern cars, they're so well sealed it's actually pretty hard to punch through from the cabin into the engine bay. I think there is actually a grommet down under the pedals there where a few cables go through, and I should be able to push it through there. So I'm simply going to be using one of these sleeve connectors and crimp it on. Just a little tip, I used to fumble around with crimp connectors that were absolutely rubbish, and I could never get a decent crimp connection. But a friend of mine who actually works for British Airways, fixing aeroplanes, taught me the wonders of proper crimping machines, proper geared ones that won't, they're sort of a ratchet thing, and it's a completely different thing to what you'll get in Halfords under the guise of a wire crimper. And, yeah, proper crimped connections. I must say they are splendid, and you will never use those Ziploc connectors ever again. So go in the hole, and that's marvellous. So that's a nice connection, that's not going to go anywhere. So now I just need to get the end of this through the bulkhead, and then I can get it out to the fuse box. That's it, I think we're through. I think I'm into the engine bay with the wire. I've just got to pull up the slack. There it is, I can see the wire, I think. Yep, I've got it. I've got the brown wire from inside. So I am through. Oh. Right, so I've got the wire. All I need to do now is route it properly, get it into the fuse box, and then it should be done. Yeah. Move that up. Oh. We want to get this wire as neat and tidy as we can, just because you don't want loads of loose wires flying all over the engine bay. So these two metal spring clips, and you'll see the whole thing then comes up pretty easily. That's that. Jesus, I'm getting to the end of my rope, I must say, as well, and it's late and it's wet, but we're so nearly done. If I'm right, I think it's now basically finished. All I have to do is reconnect this fuse box, clip the fuse box all back together, and then reconnect the battery, and if I'm right, it will start on the key at that point. Oh my goodness. Ah, Christ. Oh, bloody hell. Right, well, I think everything is finished. I think I've done all I can. I almost don't want to try it, because if it doesn't work now, I'm a bit stumped and it's back to the drawing board. So, but the battery's connected. There's no smoke coming out of any terminals. Everything seems good. So now it's, I think, a case of just trying it, see if it starts on the key. So it's in park, everything's on. We've got some lights. So here we go. Oh. Well, it didn't start because the battery's flat, but it turned over. It started to turn over. So a fresh battery, that will start. So I'd say I'll give it one more go. Yep, that's trying to turn over. I knew the battery was dead, so, and I've had the lights on. That's actually fantastic. And given the time, it's probably better that it didn't roar into life, but that means first thing in the morning, fresh battery. That's going to start. So I can go to bed happy. Well, here we are again. It's a slightly grey, drizzly morning, but compared to last night, it's absolutely luxurious. Now, you saw last night, I got as far as the starter making a noise, which I'm fingers crossed, I hope means it's going to be okay. But I can't actually trust it. I'm just putting the new battery in now. Now I am hopeful that it's going to work. So this really is the moment of truth. I mean, I don't know what I'll do if it doesn't start. Lights on. Here we go. Oh, Jesus. And it works. Well, there we go. Now 25 miles straight away. It's a good way of testing if it works okay. I've got a fire extinguisher, so it should be okay. Well, it works. That is good. I have defeated the immobiliser. It starts on the key, everything works as it should, and as far as I can see it's all okay, but oh my god, I don't know why I do these things. I'm not sure if it keeps me young or it's going to send me to an early grave, but well, I've done it anyway. For what it's worth, this car is now completely free of its immobiliser, and I really don't need that key fob anymore. So yeah, I'm happy. Off check, everything is fine. Good. No smoke, no fire. The only thing I'm slightly worried about is if the bonnet clears the battery terminals. It's low. That is the earth anyway, so that's fine even if it touches. I don't think it's going to touch, but the earth terminal is very close. But as I say, it's the earth anyway, so bloody hell. It doesn't shut. I'm going to have to drop the battery box. I mean, I'm actually confident to run like that because it is the earth terminal anyway, so it's not going to cause any short circuits. And the live is a good 2 inches down. We've just got to go. Right, well, I've just made it to work and back. That is a 50-mile round trip, and I've also got another battery that will actually fit properly. So I'm just going to do that now, and the job really is finished. Better, exactly the right size. Together. Properly. And the bonnet shut. So I've done 50 miles in the car now. No alarm. Oh, it's just all working fine. I'm really chuffed. That's a good job done. Done for the night.